Welcome, everybody, to the Fireside Chat. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lindley Schutz. I'm Assistant Head of School for Academics, and joining me tonight is Mark Blaisdell, our longtime and beloved Head of Middle School. And Mark and I are going to share with you a fantastic array of updates tonight. First, we're going to start by celebrating our amazing winter term that's just coming to close. Second, we're going to share with you a variety of action steps for things that you can take care of over the next few weeks. And finally, we're going to share with you some exciting news about our pathway programs, which have been in place for a few years, as well as some exciting changes that we're making in the middle school. This is a lot of information. So as we move through, please add any questions that you might have to the chat, and we'll catch up with those questions at the end and try to answer as much as we can. And then anything that we can't get to, we'll follow up by email.
Yeah, and similarly, by the way, hi Lindley, how you doing?
Hi. Hi.
Long time no see. Hi, hi everyone. Super excited about tonight. Also, just to know, these are always recorded. All these fireside chats are recorded, and it's one of the things that you can find, one of the many things you can find under our media tab. So just know that you can always look there. So welcome everyone. Super excited about tonight.
Great, and thanks for that good reminder. So first, let's start with celebration. It is so remarkable that we are finishing a winter term in which we spent the first 5 weeks in family phase, all virtual together, and then we moved into 5 weeks of being back on campus. And during this time, we've had arts programming, we've been playing sports, we've had fantastic community meetings and advisories. And throughout all of it, I just really want to share our thanks to all of you, both families and students and faculty and staff, because with everyone's remarkable patience and caring to follow all the health protocols, we have stayed healthy and well, and we've been able to enjoy this time together. So thank you so much to all of you for taking all of those good steps with us. So we're just so grateful as we turn this page on our winter term and begin to look towards the spring. And I'm going to take just a moment and share the screen so that as Mark and I begin to walk through some of the updates with you, you can follow along very readily. Excellent. So Mark's going to start by sharing with some information with us about the days that lie ahead in the spring term.
Right. So first of all, calendar. Some of you may remember in one of the many communications that we sent throughout the year is we really looked at our old calendar and we thought about the desire that many families have to travel now that things are opening up and monitoring the state guidelines. So what we did is we traditionally had a week off in February and then 2 weeks off in March, but we have combined those, which is why after Friday, after school tomorrow, we will have 3 consecutive weeks off. It's just a combination of that 1 week in February and the 2 weeks that are traditionally in March. And again, what that allows you, so that runs basically through February 19th through March 14th is now that holiday, which that 3 weeks allows people within that first 2 weeks to travel as much as they want to be with family, and then still have a 2 week quarantine period so that kids can come back. So the way that works is that first week back at school, which starts on the 15th through the 19th, is a virtual week. We've called this the prudent phase, or kind of a family phase, similar to what we did in the fall after Thanksgiving. So that first week back is a virtual week. All students will be virtual. We have sent out and will resend out that schedule for what the virtual week looks like for students. That'll just be 1 week. In that 15th, as you know, hopefully many of you, and I know many of you have have signed up for the mandatory meetings with parents, their child, and their child's advisor on the 15th, and that will be a great way to wrap up this winter term, which was unprecedented in that it was half virtual and half on campus, and then also to set goals for the spring. So if you have not signed up for those conferences with your advisor on the 15th, that's through Calendly, and please make sure that you do that. I'm sure you've got an email from your child's advisor with a little reminder, and maybe even one from Andrea Stevenson, and perhaps a call from Andrea Stevenson and Diane Wall. So we will be back on campus on the 22nd for anybody that chooses to do that. If you do plan on being back, though, remember the date, I think I've got this right, is that you won't be traveling after March 8th. After March 8th, that will give you a 2-week window. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense of the calendar, and the rest of the calendar is there to see. But I just we wanted to make sure you got the calendar for when we come back after this break. If you have any questions about that, just throw it into the chat. We will get to it at the end. So the calendar for March 22nd through April 28th. I'm not going to go through the virtual calendar because kids will be home, but it's similar. It's a little bit shortened. It's the similar calendar that we ran when we were remote for the first half of the fall. But in spring, because we are so ambitious in New Hampshire, we know that starting on March 22nd, winter will be so far behind us. We will be in absolute sunny spring, right, Lindley?
Absolutely.
The
Bluebirds
windows will,
singing.
right. We'll be able to open the windows again. You can see what the schedule looks like. 80-minute classes. Know that within that, we have definitely found in the middle school and in the upper school that we will take mask breaks, probably a couple quick mask breaks during classes to break that up. Lunch, as you can see, will be 50 minutes, and we will start getting back outside when possible. I bring that up because when we go outside for lunch, everybody needs to go outside. So if you have a child that gets cold and it's not 70 degrees yet, which it's probably not going to be, make sure your child is coming to school with lots of layers so we can get outside in the middle school for lunch and recess, and the same for the upper school as well. The other things I wanted to highlight is there are some differences with sports. I believe Chris Hetler has posted some information about this. The middle school sports will be running from 2:45 to 4:15, very similar to what they did in the fall, and that will be on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. So middle school sports Monday, Thursday, Friday. If were there any upper school parents out there, I will just let you know that that's 2:45 to 4:45 Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So every day but Wednesday. So that's the sports schedule. After school study hall will be in the Science and Innovation Center, the same way it is right now. And that's available till 6 o'clock. The buses are at 2:45, so you can see that the day ends at 2:30. Any students that's not doing athletics or on for the middle school on Tuesday and Wednesday can get on the bus then. That's a 2:45 departure. And the late bus is leaving at 5 o'clock. That's a 5 o'clock departure. Um, Pickup, right? Pickup is the same in the morning, 7:30 to 7:55. If in the middle school you're picking your child up, that's just a slight shift later as the day gets extended, 2:30 to 2:45 in the middle school parking lot. If your child is doing sports on those sports days and you're picking them up, you really have two choices. We found out from the fall, many parents just pick up their child at the field. So if if your child's playing lacrosse, you would pick them up. You might as well pick them up right down by the turf field. And if they're playing baseball with me, um, I feel free to come pick them right up in the parking lot that's up by the upper fields. If not, we will walk them back to study hall, and if they're taking the bus, and then they'll leave at 5 o'clock. So again, that's the basic daily schedule. If you have questions about that, this is obviously available to you. We'll email it out and ask any questions in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end.
Excellent, thank you. This next slide lays out some action steps that we'll invite all of you to be taking action on over the next few weeks while we're on the holiday. The first is that soon, over the next few days, you'll receive an invitation to fill out a survey that we call the letter of intent. And this is the same survey that you all filled out in the fall and in the winter. And the idea is that you let us know what your goal is for your student. Will they be on campus learning, or will they be learning from home? And of course, as always, we would really hope that as many students can come back to campus as possible. We feel really confident about the health protocols. They were so successful throughout the winter. As you know, we've had a number of weeks where we've had absolutely no transmission on campus. The pool testing has shown no spread of the virus. So the pool testing was a layer that we added this winter to just reinforce the other layers of protection that we've been using all fall. And those layers of protection in the spring will be the same. They'll include masking, distancing 6 feet, hand washing, sanitizing spaces, making sure that the air is staying clear with HVACs and the air purifying machines. And as Mark said, we know by New England, maybe mid-May, we'll be opening windows, but we really hope sooner. And then as we move back onto campus in the spring, we'll continue to do the pool testing that we did this winter. We'll do that pool testing the very first Thursday back. And then after that, we'll make a decision about whether we'll continue with the pool testing based on what's happening in the context of the state and on campus. So if you have any questions about whether or not you want to commit to being back on campus, or whether you're still thinking about staying virtual, please let your advisor know in that parent conference. You can also reach out to Lainey Shaughnessy with health questions, or Jill Roberts, or you can reach out to division heads if you have larger questions that they can help out with. The second action step will be, and Mark talked about this a little bit earlier, will be to look out for that email invitation from your child's advisor to come to the March 15th Parent Advisor Advisee Conference. You'll set that conference time up on Calendly, just like we did back in the fall. And the conferences will be a little different for each grade level. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to explain what the goals are for the conferences at each of the different levels. For 6th and 7th graders, the parent conference will look just like it did in the fall. It'll be an update on your students' progress. We'll have a chance to talk about how they learned how to manage their time and learning over that shift from being home virtually to being back on campus for some of them over the last 5 weeks. For seniors, the March 15th conference will be a time for them to share out their plans for their independent senior projects, and to also talk about things that they'd like to do to make their spring term successful as we're moving towards this remarkable close for all of them of their time at DS. For 8th through 11th graders, this conference is just a fantastic time for parents and advisors to talk through the pathways that your children have been working on, and to use the pathways as a way to have a really productive conversation around course selection for the upcoming school year. So what will happen is that over the next week or so, you'll receive from the school a letter that explains the course registration process, as well as the suggestions from the teachers about which courses we're recommending your student consider for next year. What's important to know about those recommendations is that each teacher works within their department to make the recommendation. And that means that, for example, the English department doesn't necessarily know what the math department was recommending. So it's really important that as parents and advisors, you get together with your students to talk through how they want to balance the courses that they're choosing with all of the other things that are important to them. So the idea is that they'll think about what extracurriculars they pursue on campus and outside of school, like travel sports, or maybe an internship or work opportunity that they have. And they want to make sure that the courses that they're selecting do two things, that they offer both appropriate challenge, meaning they're inspiring, they're exciting, they're challenging them in ways that they're excited for, and also that they're balanced, that they work in balance with all of the other things that are important to your student. So those are the kinds of things that we'll ask you to be talking about with your advisor on the March 15th conference. The last action step is also a really exciting one, and that is that for those of us who love to travel and have been somewhat thwarted potentially by the pandemic, over the February and March break, we're offering a number of virtual global programs. So look for an email coming from Susan Rodman over the next couple of days that lay out some really amazing opportunities to travel virtually to Costa Rica and South Africa and a number of other places on all kinds of topics. All right, next we're going to share out some really exciting updates that have been happening in the middle school.
Lindsay, I'm a little upset. You didn't see me keep raising my little hand up.
Oh no. I was so sorry I missed it. I was so excited about sharing all the updates.
I don't know, but you know, this is what the kids do. They go on and off like this. So they keep raising their hand. They find a way to digitally do what they do in school. I just wanted to add for the conferences for the current eighth grade rising to ninth grade. You will see on the form that you will get digitally that the academic foundations class will say to be determined. And I just want to let you know the plan is when we have our academic review, that will be when all eighth grade teachers get together with the advisors on the Thursday, the last Thursday before we return on the 15th. They will be discussing the idea of academic foundations for every student, and you will be discussing academic foundations with your advisor in that advisor meeting on the 15th. So it might be good for you rising ninth graders to look at the academic foundations class and try to think about, whether you think that would be good for your child or not. And that will be part of that discussion on the 15th. Okay, so I'm going to transition now to what makes to talking about some of these new programs that we are super excited. And I will do a teaser. At the end, I will explain how we figured out using new math, how to add things to what I often call the middle school salad bar of offerings, how we figured out how to add things without subtracting anything. I know it sounds impossible, but I'll show you how new math has allowed us to do that. So we're going to talk about these changes in terms of three different phases. The first phase is what we did. Gee, the work was probably 5 or 6 years ago, Lindley.
Right, it
Yeah,
was. It was.
about 5 or 6 years ago, we got together and we came up with what we called, as a middle school faculty, the middle school learner's portrait. And I would say that this was partially aspirational in terms of what we wanted our middle school graduates to have by the time they finished eighth grade, but it was also highly reflectional, meaning that we thought we were already doing a lot of this. So we wanted to capture that. And you can see here, as a Derryfield student, I am, and you'll see those seven, and they're pretty important and we think critical for the middle school years, unmissable characteristics that we want our middle schoolers to have. Um, and these skills are across the board. And what we did with them is then it allowed us to look at our sixth through eighth grade curriculum and say, okay, if we really want kids to be organized, self-directed learners, how exactly are we doing that in each grade, building on itself until our kids become eighth graders, to the point where they are organized and self-directed learners. And you can do that for all of those 7 traits. You could jump to the next slide onto phase 2. So phase 2, which we did a few years ago, was to really focus on looking at our curriculum and looking at 21st century skills in leadership, and that led to changes, and there are ongoing changes that we'll be sharing with you at the end of this year in the lead classes, which build character, social emotional learning, and ethical leadership. In our exploration classes, you've heard about these. It's been really, it's been really, frankly, pretty upsetting for us in the middle school that after adding these 2 years ago, well, actually last year, in seeing the difference that having choice to pursue passions made for middle schoolers, that we couldn't do them this year because it would have caused a lots of mixing across grades. So we're super excited about starting up our exploration courses again, where students will get more choice within their middle school curriculum to pursue some passions and maybe even try to discover a passion they didn't really know about. And then also this leads into phase 2, the real development of what's called our Pathways program, which starts in the 8th grade and follows kids, I would say, through 12th grade, but really it's designed to follow them into college and even beyond. And I'm going to kick it over to Lindley to talk about the Pathways program now.
And Mark, you're so right. All of the students, both in the middle school and in the upper school, have really missed these exploration courses, and things like the CSI course and the course on architecture and nature and photography. That's one of the most frequent questions I've been getting from students is, when are we going to be able to go back to exploration courses? And I'm really hoping to continue to answer next fall. So this next slide gives you a glimpse into what's called the new Pathway program. And pathways are made for every 8th grader and every student who's new to Derryfield. Our colleagues developed the Pathways program to fully develop student potential. Every 8th to 12th grader does one-on-one coaching with a trained administrator. We call them Pathfinders. And working together, they identify strengths and weaknesses. And from that conversation, the administrator creates this graphic representation. This is an example, which points to 3 academic areas for students to investigate and lists opportunities in the form of courses, online classes, clubs, activities, and global trips aligned with that area. The document also identifies opportunities for students to explore in extracurriculars, and also through shadowing days and internships and potential job opportunities. And the idea is that we want our students to have a sense about the ways that their current interests and interests that they're interested in exploring can actually be connected to real world experiences and ways that they can have real impact in these areas right now, that they don't need to wait to have impact until they're older or in college or after college. And one of the main goals of the program is to teach students to think like pathfinders, meaning that they're cultivating these habits of thinking and questioning and reflecting that will help them continue to set incremental goals towards long-term goals so that they know sort of what's my next best action step. And we hope that after they have had this experience of working with the Pathfinder initially to put together the pathway, and then they return to the pathway over years through their advisory and again through the lead classes, that it's really building this great sense of confidence and awareness about how they can continue to think this way as they move through different points in their life where they want to be doing that kind of forward thinking. So you'll see that in this first page, you'll see the first three areas of special topics that list classes and activities, and exploration courses. It also uses the students' language to explain some of the characteristics that are most important to them about themselves. That's in this little section where you see leader, peacemaker, listener, communicator, motherly, artist, reader, writer. And then in the next page is where we begin to point students towards ways to act on their interests through extracurriculars. And also, and this is one of my favorite parts, also begins to point out to them, you'll see up under the area called faculty staff, that they are part of a network of people who are here to help them enjoy the things that they enjoy and also make connections to those opportunities. So this is part of that effort to help students understand how to really get a sense of how to build on their interests, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. The next phase that we've been working on developing in the middle school is to develop in a very intentional way additional opportunities in STEM. And recently, when I was talking about this with a parent, they said, wow, this is just incredibly ambitious that you all are doing this kind of thinking about new courses during this time of doing concurrent teaching and learning in this whole new mode. But building on conversations with our families and our faculty, we've learned so much over the vision work that we've been doing over the last 2 years. And in this year of doing so much digital instruction, that we're really excited to take this leap and begin to introduce more of these STEM experiences. So we're really excited that in this next year, we're going to be introducing to 6th and 7th graders additional experiences in coding, and also that they'll continue to do the kind of design thinking, engineering thinking in 6th. They'll be introducing this new course in financial literacy and entrepreneurship in 8th. And then students will continue to have the fantastic opportunities they already have in robotics and exploration courses. So Mark, I wanted to share with you the question that the parent asked, which is, why introduce these numerous experiences in coding at the middle school level? Why not wait until the upper school?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the pathways. I I don't think you'd find it surprising to find out that the genesis of this pathways program, when you see that students rising into the high school get this sort of information, it may not surprise you to learn that it came from a group of faculty and administrators who also happen to be parents of Derryfield kids, either past or present at the time, that said, wow, this would be really great for my child to go into high school with this kind of roadmap to their future, so they're not going in it blind and they're thinking about planning 4 years out. And that will be part of those reviewing those will be part of those meetings with among the 8th grade advisors. So I just wanted to add that it's an unbelievable program. But back to why STEM is so important. Well, first of all, anybody who reads any educational journals in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years will see that coding, for example, is not only referred to as another world language, but often referred to as the new world language. Also, I would say, as somebody who's taught coding, for example, within our math program, it teaches other super important skills for middle schoolers to develop. It teaches sequential thought. It teaches attention to detail. It teaches problem solving. And for any parents who of 7th graders who've already taken the 7th grade coding class, it also teaches patience, because whenever you're coding, things are going to go wrong. And then it's how you, just like our math curriculum and other curriculum talks about, how do you work around? How do you figure out what's wrong? How do you fix things? which is a huge part of our not only a number of our curriculum within disciplines, but it's one of the traits that I spoke about earlier. Also, it's important to get a coding experience within the STEM experience in the middle school, because sometimes students can avoid computer sciences or coding or STEM for the first time in the upper grades because they're worried that it's too risky. They're afraid they don't know about it and they're not going to be good about it. It'll hurt their grades. Or maybe they just don't know that it may be an interest of theirs. And like I've often said, I referred to it earlier, the salad bar of the middle school, we want to make sure that kids are trying as much as they possibly can so that they know what they may be interested in terms of their passions in the future. And I would say, especially when we're talking about STEM, it's so important for middle school girls to have these opportunities because the statistics bear out that these fields, from a very early on, tend to be somewhat gender stereotyped, which we know middle schoolers have a tendency to do. And too often, girls who might be very interested don't see that as subjects that might be a passion of theirs. So we want to build their confidence in them. We want to give them the opportunities. And although it's too early to talk possibly about career paths, when you're talking about 12 year olds, you never know. I mean, what I think we're going to see, and we've seen kids that often go through Derryfield and discover passions do end up going into that as well, going into that for their careers. Finally, when we give them these skills in coding, it means that within our other classes, it opens up certain projects that we could do that we couldn't do if they didn't have that experience.
It's so
So,
true. And Mark, I just wanted to add, I had this wonderful moment the other day where a current junior was connecting with a Derryfield alum from 2010, and that alum is currently in the astrophysics program at Yale. And as they were chatting, the junior said, tell me about what you were able to do at Derryfield in the middle school and upper school to prepare you for this. And she had terrific math classes and terrific science classes. But when she heard what our current junior was doing in our current offerings in computer science, she said, I have to confess, I'm a little jealous. So I think we're really helping to anticipate what's going to give all of our students that really solid foundation so they feel confident to pursue it. And for the kids who didn't get it in middle school at Derryfield, as they move into the upper school, they have the opportunity through the 10th grade computer science class. It's now a graduation requirement, as well as the other computer science classes and STEM classes to build those skills.
yeah, so what you can see on this slide here is exactly what we're talking about in terms of the courses that will be sort of the new model for the middle school. These 21st century skills in STEM. All the kids now are in coding in seventh grade. We're going to expand that to do it so that they'll get it in 2 grades, a trimester in 2 grades, which is kind of the design of a lot of things. For example, they get drama in 2 grades, they get art in 2 grades, so that kind of puts it on equal footing. Um, there's a design thinking class in the 6th grade that's still there. We're going to be able to add a financial literacy and entrepreneurship class in the 8th grade with the shift that we're doing. And of course, we still have middle school robotics and middle school exploration courses that will be within the STEM fields as well. So the question is, how do we do that? Right? This is that new math that I was kind of kidding about. How do you add and not subtract? And really, the answer is condensing. We're going to condense some things. And the area that we could do that in particular are the world languages. So, what the new model will be is that students in 7th grade will take all of them will take a trimester of a class called the Classical World, which will introduce them to Latin and classical studies. and a trimester of Spanish language and cultural studies. Um, this will allow them, after they've taken each of these trimesters, we believe, to make a more informed decision about what they're going to take in eighth grade for a language. That eighth grade year, they'll be taking Latin and they can choose Latin and classical studies one or Spanish language and culture one. What that means is that from a world language standpoint, they will graduate from the middle school in the same place as they've always been. That means ready to go on to a level 2 course in the high school. The difference is we used to do that in 2 years. We would take, say, Spanish 1, a Spanish 1 level class, and split it into half a year seventh and half a year eighth. What that does mean is that it is going to give them an opportunity that we also think will be important, and that's to get a sense, a better sense of the pacing of an upper school course when they are eighth graders. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. The key thing is they are coming out of the middle school at the same place that they always have been. Now, some of you might be saying, well, wait a second, Mr. B, my child's in your seventh grade Spanish class. What's going to happen? Well, of course, we're going to have to phase this in. So my clase de español muy terrifico, um, they are going to, next year, the sequence will stay the same. They will go into the second part of Spanish 1 as an eighth grader and then move on to Spanish 2. The change will come from this year's current sixth graders moving into next year. I hope that makes sense of that. But if you have any questions, throw it in the chat and I can clarify. I can clarify. Okay. And then before we get to the questions, and I know Lindley's been looking through them, I just want to make a plug into MSA. If you are interested, we have had such amazing community meetings. I've just been blown away. I'm sure Lindley would say the same thing, as have the kids. And I just want to let you know that these communication meetings, which are all uh, projected through YouTube, they're a great way to feel connected to school events. Um, you can see, awards that have been given, some amazing student performances, as well as speakers. And if you are interested in seeing those, just go to the MSA under our media tab, and you can see any of that. They're great conversation starters with your kids too about what they've experienced. So just a big plug for that, because if I think we all are trying to find, make the best out of COVID, and we never recorded all these before and made them public. So that's kind of a nice benefit, and it's a great way to stay involved, and you will just be so impressed with the quality of these performances in these community meetings. So please feel free to check that out.
They are
So
really
that's
wonderful.
a ton of information. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're super excited about it. We could talk to you for hours ad nauseum. But Lindley, were there any questions that came through the chat?
There were a few. So the first question is about sports in the upper school. And the question is, what will the sports schedule be in the upper school? And um, our understanding right now is that they'll run on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesdays off. There might be some tweaks to that within a given sports program. So that's where it would be really important to look for that email that will be coming from coaches and from Mr. Hetler, laying out the different plans. And you can also find dates for games and competitions on MSA as we move forward.
Yeah, and they are practiced at 2:45 to 4:45, but you really are going to have to go into MSA to look at some of the scheduling. So, for example, tennis, the schedule is going to be different, because even though we have 6 brand new courts that we've never used after a year of building them. With JV teams and boys and girls teams, they're going to have to do some alternating. So that schedule will be on MSA. You may even get a direct email from the coaches.
Excellent. The next question is, after the initial pathway is created, do students continue to meet with the Pathfinder to continue to adjust as their interests change? And that is a yes. So Mark and I are both so eager to talk about this, because pathways have just been so terrific about giving students a vehicle to talk about these ideas. And right now, students revisit their pathways both through the lead classes, and then also through advisory. And what we're introducing more of as we move into conferences more frequently is students will have more opportunities to share their pathways with their parents in conjunction with their advisor to talk about those options that are being shown. Let's see.
I saw that really good question. Somebody asked about the 3 weeks, whether that's whether that's going to continue. I love that. So, like, here's one of the cool things: when you have to innovate as much as we have, we're trying out some things that we've never tried out that we'll be asking families about. This 3 week break is one of them. Another one that's come up is, we have changed our reporting structure um, quite a bit to include these parent advisor student meetings at the end of every term. And that's one of the things too, we're going to ask for feedback to see to see what that experience was from a parent and student standpoint. And that might be something that we continue to do too. But we will survey you all about those to help us make those decisions. But it's kind of been cool to try some new things out of necessity.
Excellent. Let's see, there are a number of questions about sports. And some of those I'm actually just going to defer to the answer I gave before, which is to please look for that email from Coach Hetler and the coach of your student's specific sport, because they'll have much more detail than I'm equipped to give here because of the number of sports that we're talking about. Let's see, and go ahead.
I saw one, Lindley, about coding from a current seventh grader. So as you know, your seventh grader this year has taken a coding course. If they haven't yet, it just means that they're in a rotation. They'll be taking it in the spring. As an eighth grader, there won't be necessarily a course, but I would strongly suggest, if that's an interest or a passion, that they join the MS robotics team, which, as you know, does a lot of real hands-on coding, and it adds competition to it. So middle schoolers love competition.
They love competition. I don't think that ever dies. I think that goes right on into upper school. And then there's a good question here about whether seniors who are doing independent study projects, that I think the question asker might mean on site, meaning at a workplace. Can those students also participate in spring sports? What we would ask you to do is to have, is for the parent and the student to send an email to Susan Grodman describing what the on-site ISP commitment is going to be and letting her know which spring sport your child participates in. And then she'll respond specifically to you about that request. So that's a good one for Susan Grodman.
I saw another great question that's just this general question about, as a parent, I've got a question I'm formulating and I'm not sure what the first step should be. And it's always Lindley shoots. Just kidding. No, as am I, but really, those are great. A great clearinghouse is the advisor. I would, if you've got a question, you're not sure who to bring it to, I would send that question to your child's advisor. If it's appropriate, bring it up in the meeting on March 15th. But the advisor is a great clearinghouse, sort of a great conduit for you if you're not sure who to ask, they'll be able to direct you in the right place. Really take advantage of them.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the good questions and thank you for joining us tonight. Um, and I know that Mark is about to head off into a home carpentry project that I hope he's going to use excellent math skills there too, new math or old. And I'm heading off into a reading pile that just has been growing all fall and winter that I can't wait to dive into. So, Mark, thanks so much for sharing all this exciting news. And thank you all for joining us. And we will be here to answer any questions that arise. So please send them our way by email. Take
I
care.
just
Yep.
I just saw a couple quick ones. I'll answer them quick.
Oh,
Yes,
sure.
we got 1,000 new masks. So if your child needs a new mask, Chris Hetler just showed me. Just let Andrea Stevenson or Dywall know, and we'll get you. We can get you more masks. And other questions about athletics, just really send those to Chris Hetler, and you'll get the most. Chris has done an amazing job. The changes in athletics have been enormous. So he's done a great job keeping up with them, and I would send them directly to Chris so that he can give you the most up-to-date info.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you to all of you for all the tremendous care that you brought to all of our on-campus and virtual interactions this winter, and enjoy this 3-week holiday. We'll check in later to see what we all thought about this 3-week holiday. I think we're all really deserving and eager for it. So good night, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Night, Mark.
Thank you, Lindley.